Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Carla if you're new here, and I make videos about how I show up for myself in hopes of inspiring you to do the same. By showing up for myself, I transformed my life, overhauled my mental health and lost half of my body weight. If you like that type of content to do with personal development, mental health, weight loss, weight maintenance and fashion and beauty, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It helps to grow the channel, it helps to grow the community, and it helps YouTube to know that it is valuable content. Today's video, I'm going to be chatting to you about getting comfortable with our discomfort. This is a topic that is really underestimated when it comes to its importance and value when we are dealing with things such as weight loss. This could also be to do with mental health work, it could be to do with addiction, it could be to do with any type of behavior that is not serving us well, whether it's gambling, sex, food addiction, or just generally things that aren't serving us very well. One of the things when I was losing 180 pounds is that I had to learn to be okay with discomfort and stop catastrophizing discomfort, because that's what I used to do. I used to believe that the discomfort of being hungry, slightly hungry, the discomfort of having to go for a walk, the discomfort of changing was not worth the effort, and I used to run away from discomfort and in turn numb myself out. I'll leave a video linked up here if you guys would like to check it out. It's about my mental health journey and how my mental health transformation came first, and it was in understanding that I was using food as a way to soothe myself, literally to comfort myself from the negative voices and the negative things that I was telling myself and the trauma that I was allowing to run continuous loops in my head. And I use food to try and change my state, because that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to change the way we feel with a substance, and typically that is food. If you're watching this, it's most likely food, but it can be with any kind of substance. And when we're trying to change that, we're seeking comfort. We're looking for a way to be comfortable again. It comes in with self-sabotage. It comes in so many different ways. But in this video, what I thought I'd do is chat to you about a number of ways that we can learn to acknowledge and accept our own discomfort and address the feelings so that they don't overwhelm us. And I'm going to give you a couple of strategies that might help you to address that feeling of discomfort, acknowledge it, and to be able to move on and live your life. These are some of the things that I had to do in order to push through to be okay with being not okay. And instead of running away from our feelings, hopefully this will help you to acknowledge and to understand and to live through those feelings and allow yourself to sit with that discomfort. The first and most important thing is to recognize and accept our feelings. This comes in with radical self-compassion as well. This is where we start to accept the way that we feel as opposed to trying to change it. The first step in overcoming anything is acknowledgement, admittance, and seeing that we have an issue. Being able to identify that we have something that needs to be sorted or something that's making us not feel great. I had a direct message from a lovely follower a couple of days ago. She was on a weight loss journey and it was going really well, but she was potty training her 2-year-old, and it was also coming up to the 2-year anniversary of her mum. The year anniversary, of her mum's passing. And that day, all she felt was that she wanted sugar. And the only thing that I could do to help was to remind her of what's actually happening here. So when we have a discomfort, recognizing that we have that discomfort and not immediately skipping the step to try and change it. Typically, something will trigger, and then we skip over the recognition stage and we go straight to the curation, or what we think is the curation stage. Instead, there is an element in between, and that's the key, is to allowing us to recognize and understand that that's what we're feeling. The only thing that I could do to that lady to help her was to help her to realize that the feeling that she was having, that craving for sugar that she was having at that time, was her mind's way of seeking comfort. Sugar is a comfort. It is something that triggers lovely dopamine hits in our brain and makes us feel really good for a very short period of time. Sugar is not a long-term solution to being sad. Feeling sad and having those emotions and allowing them to pass through us is a way to do that. So the first step in being okay with being not okay is to recognize that, is to stop numbing out. So say, for example, you get triggered. You have a really bad day in work and you come home and automatically you're thinking, I just want to eat a pizza. I just want a pizza. That's all I want. And there is a reason for that. Yes, we could be tired. Yes, there can be other reasons. It could be our period or all these kind of things. But when we look at it, most likely we've been triggered because we had a bad day in work. Somebody said something awful to us. And we're at home now and we're seeking some kind of comfort. And what we're doing is we're just reaching for the most readily accessible comfort to cure how we're feeling, to fix how we're feeling, or what we think is going to fix how we're feeling, but it never does. We are going straight from the trigger of having a really bad day at work to what we believe is the cure, which is to order the food. Because that's what, the food is there. It tells us that it makes us feel good while we're eating it. But we haven't acknowledged or accepted the inner part of what has happened and being able to go, okay, why am I feeling like this? So that's on to step 2 or strategy 2, or the next part is to identify the source of that discomfort. If we are getting triggered in our first step, we're recognizing that something isn't right. What we need to do is recognize that this is not right. And then it brings us on to number 2, which is to identify the source of that discomfort. Now, for some of us, it might not be as simple as John gave out to me today. The client wasn't happy with my presentation. It could be something deep rooted, and that's okay. But trying to work out the source of that discomfort will help us in the future to identify, okay, I recognize that I'm being triggered and not feeling okay. This is similar to that time when that other client didn't like my presentation. Okay, that's what's going on here. So we're identifying the source of that discomfort. But there could also be a situational trigger, something that you don't even realize is happening. Something that has, all of a sudden you're sitting in traffic and you're getting worked up. Nothing's happened, nobody's cut you off, but you're being triggered. There are times when I'm triggered. I know I have friends who get very triggered when they are in situations with multiple people. And it's not the person that's triggering them. There is a situation probably from their past that is triggering that behavior now in their present. I'm not saying that we need to identify the source of that trigger point right this minute, because that's probably going to need some kind of help. But it's just recognizing that there is something here and maybe we can figure out what that source is. Moving on, once we have recognized they're not feeling good, we're identifying it's time to become very present in our body. You've probably heard me speaking about mindfulness or grounding repeatedly. And what that's doing is, so when we are triggered or we're feeling discomfort, we're kind of up in the ether. We're out here, we're just, our brains have left our body and we're just like running around. We're feeling anxious, we're feeling overwhelmed. We're not feeling present in our body. We're not in that current situation. We're probably living in the past, or we're worrying about something in the future, trying to escape that discomfort that we're feeling in here. And this is the crux of my entire issue, is that my whole life I was living in the ether because I was constantly and continuously triggered by the things I was telling myself. And what I was telling myself inside was so awful that I was seeking comfort. The adult me, was escaping my body, didn't want to deal with whatever was going on in here, and my inner child was taking over and making the decisions. And she, my inner child, was reaching for the most readily available comfort that she knew, which was food. And so what I needed to do in order to learn to push through this, to work through this gently, I said push, but to work through it gently really, is to become mindful and practice grounding. What that is doing is it's pulling us back into our bodies, from out here and back in, to be very present in our bodies, so that we are conscious of our decisions, we're conscious of what's happening in our body, we're allowing ourselves to identify and recognize our sources, our triggers, and that we're feeling a certain kind of way, and honouring that feeling. I'll move on to that in a second. My recommendation with this is to practice grounding. Grounding can be walking out into the garden barefoot and taking a 20-minute meditation. It can also just be squeezing your feet, making sure you can feel the soles, squeezing your toes, making sure you can feel the ground in your feet, the surface underneath your feet. What can you feel? Is it cold? Is it warm? Are your feet warm? Check in with each of your toes. Place your emphasis and your presence and your acknowledgement on your big toe, on your second toe, on your third toe, your fourth, and your fifth. Can you feel the ball of your toe? Place your attention on the ball of your foot. Can you identify the arches of your feet and your heels? Can you wiggle your toes? Can you wiggle your feet around in circles? This is becoming more present in your body and bringing yourself back into your body, and in doing so will help you to lean in and work through that discomfort, to be present, to acknowledge it, maybe to see them, actually this might not be so bad. And now that we're in our bodies, I'm going to give you 3 more things that we can do. The first thing is to talk about it. I know it sounds really stupid, but to talk about how you're feeling. A problem shared is a problem halved. I have spent much of my entire life in my head, and as soon as I've spoken something, or I think a lot of the time we are creating a narrative about what's happening in a situation, and we might not even be accurate about that. We might not actually know what's going on in that situation. It might be picked up on a cue. Say you're dating somebody and they haven't messaged you back. You know that feeling. You've probably created a narrative in your head saying, oh, they don't like me anymore or something. Or this actually happened with Vincent and I was like, oh, it's such a pity he never contacted me. He never contacted me because he was back in France because his grandmother died. But we create this narrative in our head. So I could have called him and said, hey, what's the story? Or I could have spoken to somebody. When I speak to somebody, I get a different perspective. We get different perspectives. We get to see a different side to something. And sometimes that discomfort that we're feeling is actually something that we've created for ourselves. Sometimes that discomfort is just us creating this narrative, and that by speaking with somebody else, we can work through that. We share our feelings with people that we trust and that respect how we feel. We can become comforted. We can feel a different way. We can feel more reassured, and that we might not be reaching for food in order to make us feel that comfort. If you don't have anybody in your life that you trust, perhaps you have access to therapy. I know things like BetterHelp, you can do text messaging. Perhaps there's people online that you've spoken to in positive forums that you can speak to and share your feelings. And you'd be surprised at how amazing it is when you reach out to somebody and you ask them to just listen, how willing they are to do that. Moving on from speaking to somebody, one of my favorite ways is to work through the discomfort I'm feeling is with journaling. And this is obviously going to be no surprise to any of you who have been following me for a long time, but journaling was the catalyst to my change, but has also helped me to work through feelings that I have. I had something last week where I was triggered in a situation and I couldn't understand why I was feeling so bad, this awful feeling within me. And when I started to journal about it and I worked through, I realized, oh, that's why. This makes sense now. When I don't like, my mind doesn't appreciate this type of thing. I don't know why yet, but I've recognized that, and journaling helped me to recognize that and helped me to process that. And after journaling that specific day, I felt so much better. And when I'm talking about journaling, we don't need to be like, dear diary, Jean said blah, 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 and I said blah, 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 blah. What you're not telling somebody the details. What you're doing is trying to find the train of thought within you that is causing this feeling. And so my recommendation is to follow the train of thought as you write it out. Jane said that to me yesterday, and that really hurt me. Why did that hurt me though? What made me feel really bad about that? Was it words that she said? I don't think it was the words, but it kind of reminded me of when my grandmother used to say this to me. By working through those, you can start to go, oh, that could be the source of my discomfort, is a historic issue or historic trauma. And journaling is a pretty inexpensive and decent way to deal with our discomfort and to work through it and process it so that we can live a freer life. I'm actually going to finish this video here because I've got quite a few points that I think we can make a part 2 of this video. So if that is something that you would like, please make sure you leave a love heart for some compassion and comfort down in the comments down below. Let me know how you deal with discomfort and have you recognized any of these patterns in you. I feel that getting through our discomfort and learning to be comfortable with that discomfort and process our emotions and our feelings is the key to breaking generational cycles, breaking past behaviors and traumas, and working through it and being allowed to be our authentic self. And so I hope that this video and the subsequent videos that I create about this have helped you guys or will help you in some way. Please don't forget to subscribe, and if you have liked the content in this video, please make sure you like it down below. It really helps out the channel and helps to grow in more ways than you could ever imagine. I will love you and leave you all, and please do not forget to show up for yourselves. Talk to you soon.